You're now tuned in to VC Cheat Sheet, the podcast that gives entrepreneurs straight to the point information and behind the scenes access on raising money. Brought to you by the Center for Urban Entrepreneurship and Economic Development at Rutgers University.
You're listening to VC Cheat Sheet, and I'm your host, Melissa S. Jackson. If this is your first time listening, then thank you for tuning in. And if not, thanks for coming back. The goal of the podcast is to help Black and Latino-led startups gain insight into the world of venture and private capital through mentorship and advice. Come back often and feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. You can also follow us on Twitter at The Q, that's TheCueed. All the links are provided in the show notes at vccheatsheet.com. Now let's get into the show. On today's episode of VC Cheat Sheet, I sat down with Bryant of Harlem Capital Partners. His firm is a minority-owned, early-stage investment firm on a mission to change the face of entrepreneurship by investing in 1,000 diverse founders over the next 20 years. I spoke to him about how to build your team, your advisory boards, and eventually your company. Listen in. So talk to me about the types of companies that you all invest in. It's like, you call it a thesis?
There's a little bit of a thesis because we're learning as we go. Mm-hmm. What's been told to us by some of our mentors and some of our advisors is that we don't know enough until we actually do it. Mm-hmm. What we have been liked to right now is a lot of consumer products, media, anything that kind of makes a problem tech-enabled to solve it. We've kind of been focusing on that. And then in terms of our investments, we had out of Chicago, we had it's called a commodity exchange basically, but it's for medical marijuana. So medical marijuana, nice. The initial ingredient is hemp. Mm-hmm. So this exchange is basically trades hemp. Mm-hmm. And so hemp is not a big commodity yet because it's not legal across the US, but we are first movers on that. Our second investment was coffee shops in Harlem. Very simple, great marketing opportunity and a place to bring the community together. Third investment was in Blavity, Black media, the voice of the Black millennial, Afrotech, female founder, amazing team.
Dope.
Amazing team. Fourth investment that is, I'm not even sure if I can say the fourth investment, but it's a custom shirting company. Mm-hmm. And our fifth investment, we're actually going to be coming in as a syndicate of people who are buying an actual company in Harlem. So this will be our first private equity type of deal. Mm-hmm. So
what would you say would be the connecting binding factor for all these companies? Because they sound like they're a little, they vary.
They are very, I think the connecting theme is that they're in a certain stage. So two of our partners who are in private equity right now, they're generalists. And their thesis is that every company is pretty much similar. They just are in different stages. Mm-hmm. And if you find the right team and the right operations and processes, you can solve those and you can take that company to the next level. And then you can either exit, mm-hmm. sell it, or do whatever you need to do to have a liquidity event.
Okay.
So we took that same thesis and that's a minority-owned private equity shop. Mm-hmm. We took that same thesis and we're bringing it to the venture capital world right now.
And you specifically focus on Black and Latina ventures or Latino ventures, or
50% of the capital is going towards minorities, people who are not white males.
Okay.
To be very clear. Okay.
Awesome. All right, so we're gonna jump around a little bit.
Yes.
Talk to me about team building. Right?
Yes.
So it's a theme that we've seen a lot of in the Black and Latina community.
Yes.
Particularly surrounding not being able to connect to technical co-founders, right?
Truth.
So what are your thoughts there as it relates to finding a technical co-founder? You know, why it may be harder for, ventures of color to find mm-hmm. those resources? What are your thoughts?
One, I was talking with Yin, who's the founder of She Works Today, mm-hmm. and we were talking about the same problem. It's not necessarily a pipeline issue. It's really an awareness issue that people aren't aware of other individuals who are in the space who have this knowledge, or even to go even further, people who are in school who are coming up who can learn this early are not aware that they have that opportunity to go to the computer lab or to go on these different trips. And I gave a great case scenario. This was actually at the Suffolk County Community College talk. If Mark Zuckerberg was Black, could you think about how many people are building a social network the next day? If Bill Gates was Black, if he was Spanish, that would change the whole situation. So it's not the pipeline. I think it's enough awareness, and that's what Harlem Capital Partners.
You need like the LeBron of tech.
You do. I mean, but if you think about it, we've been so great in rap. We've been so great in sports. And we've been so great now in culture that everyone's focused on going there. Every person wants to be a rapper or an athlete.
How does that translate even to the types of companies, the deal flow that you see coming through the door, right? Like, because you mentioned a word that I love to define and get people's definition, tech-enabled, right, versus tech. So let's start there. The difference between tech and tech-enabled from your perspective.
The difference between tech and tech-enabled. I mean, tech is that the company, in my opinion, just wouldn't survive without technology. Tech-enabled is something like my business partner, John Henry, had a laundry service. He created tech to it to make it on-demand delivery. So that's a tech-enabled company.
Okay.
Software could not work without actual software.
Right.
Slack couldn't work if you didn't have internet. So I'm guessing that's, in my head, that's what tech means.
Okay. And so now going back to this idea of the opportunities available to connect and the team build.
Yes.
What are some of the gaps that you've seen in our community?
So going back again to the two of my partners from private equity, the company that they're at is ICV Partners. It's originally started in Harvard Business School as a case study by their boss in 1996.
Right.
That you can make inner cities more appealing and profitable for people to invest into them. So he took that as a thesis, graduated, raised a ton of money, and found out that there weren't enough Black-owned, Black and Latino-owned businesses, and then also the ones that they wanted to invest in, those individuals didn't want to give up equity. So it was really weird about the whole founder baby. I'm not sure if you heard about the founder baby situation. There's a difference between a CEO and a founder. A CEO just literally wants to make sure that the company does better and it gets to the next level. A founder is emotionally stuck to it, and it's their baby, and they don't want anyone touching their baby. So fast forward, they pivoted, and it's just now minority-owned private equity shop.
Okay.
And what they now have been learning over since 96 is basically that a lot of people of color are too focused on only money, not advisors, not accounting, not different processes. And okay, I made 5% more revenue than I did last year, but am I still doing administrative tasks as a CEO? Am I still trying to find the right accountant? Do I have the right law firm? Do I have X, Y, and Z? Do I have a partner who can connect me to Procter & Gamble, Target, whoever?
Right.
To get my brands out there to be huge with marketing? Do I have a growth expert who worked at Qualcomm before? Who knows?
And how does that set you back, though?
How does that set you back? It doesn't even set you back. It just... Okay, I guess it does set you back. It leaves you behind. That's what I was going to say. Okay. It leaves you in the dust, right? So if people are continually getting these things, it's like Freakonomics with the hockey players who were born in January and March. They would be the best because they got to train the most throughout the year. And so that basically comes back to my point earlier. If people are not exposed early enough to get those competencies, they get left behind. And our counterparts who are not necessarily, they're not underrepresented, they're not under-resourced, leapfrogs. It leapfrogs everybody. And then once you get those partnerships, you just become the average of the 5 people you have around you.
Right. So let's jump back to this idea of having a board of advisors, because you mentioned that very, very briefly.
Yes.
And I think the board of advisors kind of helps because they're
it's like the steering committee.
Right.
They're the Supreme Court for your company.
And they're able to see your blind spots.
They're able to see your blind spots. Those individuals should be asking hard questions.
So what's the role of an advisor at a company? And then how do I go about vetting for a person to be on my board?
Good questions. So the role of an advisor or board of directors, however you want to explain it, is basically to help you not take as many losses as you usually take as a founder. So
in our community, we call them L's.
L's. It basically helps you avert L's.
Okay.
That's what an advisor does. So if they can get you to all those processes, if they can open up those doors to all those blue chip companies, then it makes it easier for you to focus on the business, to focus on scale, to focus on hiring, to focus on company culture. You don't have to focus on getting in these doors. So advisors help with that. Advisors help with personnel issues. Advisors help with expanding the business, going from 5 employees to actually going to 200 employees. They can help with operations of how you actually buy and sell different manufacturing goods and stuff like that. And I mean, they just really help with any blind spot that you have, like you said earlier.
And so is that a position I'm actively recruiting for, or is it like a mentor where it's like, I see you?
I think it starts as a mentor.
Okay.
So it's been rumored, or I've seen it done as the board isn't built by necessarily you start with one person who you really are confident in.
Okay.
And they help you find the right people, because you don't want anyone to overlap realistically, and you want to have different expertise, but you do want to have people who are on the same page and want to steer the ship in the right direction. You don't want too much confrontation, but you definitely want different skill sets represented.
So when it comes to the pipeline of talent that you see coming through the door, what are the top 2 or 3? And we're going to try to limit them.
Yes.
What are the top maybe 2 or 3 things that you see founders of color can specifically try to avoid, or the mistakes that you see them making?
Valuation is a big one. There was a young woman who I spoke to whose valuation was, I forgot what it was. Her valuation
astronomically high, like $5.5 million.
It didn't make sense. She was raising $2 million on a valuation of $2 million. So basically, she's giving away her entire company and her rates. And I was thinking to myself, that doesn't make sense. How can you give away 100% of your company?
But it sounds like she might have miscommunicated what valuation meant.
Exactly. And on a call, I ran through her like, you technically can't give away your whole company, because there's an equilibrium point where you come to where founders and the founding team are not incentivized enough to push the company forward because they don't have enough equity in the company. So there's a problem like that can happen. But I think valuation, people don't know how they get to the valuation. So honestly, the lower and the more conservative the valuation, the more I think it's approachable to an investor, and specifically a strategic investor, because now they want to be involved because they think that they can take you to the moon and they can get more multiples of the company.
Now, is the valuation point set at the industry, or is it the company itself? And I asked that for people who don't necessarily have a product or something launched. It's just an idea.
There are some rule of thumbs. So you have pre-seed, you have seed, you have Series A. Those all have different valuation caps. Pre-seed is really tough because that's friends and family. You're bootstrapping everything. And pre-seed usually helps you get to some type of MVP. Just like a product that works. It's not the best. It's clunky, but it works. And once you get to there, then you can raise a seed. Usually when you raise a seed and you have no revenue, it's hard to have a valuation over 3 million, 2 to 3 million. And that's kind of set by 500 startups who does a lot of valuations and things of that nature.
Right.
But what I'm seeing, once you start having revenue and you're between a $500,000 a year to $1 million a year, then your valuation goes up, and you're usually between $8.5 and $10 million going into your seed round, raising anywhere between $250 to $1.5 million.
Okay. So valuation is one. What's another piece of advice to avoid someone listening to take that L? Proverbial L.
Your pitch deck. Your pitch deck has to be clean.
Let's talk about it.
Should not be too long. It should just basically talk about, in a sentence or two at the beginning, what your company does, who are you marketing to, what is the traction, what is your burn rate, how much money are you raising, what is the valuation. These are all things that should be inside of your pitch deck. And then also some type of financial analysis. And then lastly, some type of projections of what's going to happen when you get this $500,000.
Right.
What percentages of this $500,000 are going to marketing, to hiring new individuals on your team, building a product. These are all questions that I think that an investor wants to have answered in the pitch deck, so that we can get into the nitty gritty and the roots and the grass once we actually talk on the call.
Talk about using equity to build your team, right? So sometimes, very often, I see people will have a company, but they can't, they're pre-revenue.
Yes.
So they're not making any money. But they want to strategically partner with someone, or they need that technical co-founder. So they'll say, hey, I'll give you X amount of equity.
Yes.
Talk about, what your feelings are on that.
My feelings is that's the only hand that you have to play a lot of times, but you should be very strategic about it.
Okay.
A point or two makes sense, but giving away a ton of your company,
like 50%,
is tough. Okay. But I want to add something in here. If you are nowhere with a company and you're bringing on a co-founder, and there's a lot has not been improved in traction and stuff like that, you should split the company probably evenly.
Okay.
Because if I say, hey, I started this company 6 months ago, nothing has happened, I need a co-founder. I'm a solo founder. I need a co-founder, but you will never be equal to me. You're already starting the relationship off extremely, extremely on the bad side. So for a co-founder in something you haven't built out yet, and this person is literally going to be that other half to actually build out the company, sometimes it is good to have the incentives linked the right way. And I recently just did this with a passion project that I'm working on with a suit company. And I had the fabric distribution, I had the tailors, had everything lined up. But my business partner, who I brought on, he was a good friend of mine. He was a photographer of mine. We went to Italy and traveled and was in the menswear community together. But he has a law degree. He has a lot of different artistic skills in terms of like logo creation and things of that nature. And he's just well-versed in the community. And I said to myself, it's tough to really bring someone on and not give them their equal share. Yeah. And one last example was when Harlem Capital Partners was originally 5 people. John Henry came on as the 6th person. And when he was coming on, he wanted to make sure that it was going to be a very collegial and equal atmosphere. Even though we have done Harlem Capital Partners for over a year, we knew the value that he would bring, and we knew the value that we would create with him together. And it just made sense to bring it all together. And he had to buy in and all that other jazz, but realistically, you need to make sure that your team is, the incentives are in line so that you do not miss any balls or anything.
Right. What happens when the relationship doesn't work? How do you make that separation, but still, don't burn those bridges, keep the connections,
That is a very tough one. And so that honestly gets right back to what I was talking about. When you are splitting up those shares and that equity, there needs to be a termination, passage in there, under item 2A.
Which means you should actually be writing these terms out. It shouldn't just be a dialogue saying, hey,
of course. There should be
50%.
Your legal counsel should have
So get things in writing.
Documents ready, drafted, just one pair of them, but it should be drafted and ready to go. And you should have the right opportunities or the right, how do you want to say it? The right trajectory of like how it's going to work. How much do they get? And when does everything settle? Because that can be dragged out for years.
Awesome. Okay. So as a takeaway, because you're an experienced entrepreneur, if you can talk to yourself years before,
yes,
and, advise future entrepreneurs or current entrepreneurs who are in the struggle, what are some best practices, lessons learned that you would share, particularly to people who are, raising money, and, particularly as it relates to building teams, but, anything you have that you think would be valuable to your younger self?
All right. Number one, just have a clear, concise understanding of like what you want to do. Be able to say it in 15 to 20 seconds, maybe have a longer 90-second pitch. Always have some type of marketing collateral that can follow that.
Okay.
In an email pitch deck, doesn't have to be 10 pages, can be just a few pages. Network. Research. Put those together. Those two should not be on paths that aren't connecting. They should be together. Other things that I would say is definitely lean on your mentors. Let them know quarterly what you're up to. So create a nice little email thread. Everyone's BCC'd. And you just quarterly let them know what you're up to. Okay. And a lot of times what happens is that they can throw you alley-oops. They can open doors. They can help you not take L's. And you didn't even necessarily ask. You were just informing them of what you're up to. And so always being top of mind is huge. And also venture capital is a contact sport. I was told by a big time money raiser in the VC community. And so the last thing is just be a student of the game. Be a student of the game, know valuations, know who is in your ecosystem that's raising money, know what their valuation was, and just keep your ear to the ground.
Awesome. So how do we find out more about you and what you're doing with Harlem Capital Partners? Where do we follow you?
So there's a few things. You can follow the Instagram, Wall Street Paper. That's really easy. Nice fly for the gentlemen. And then ladies, if you want to check it out for your man, go ahead.
Or just a little eye candy.
Hey, she said. And then for Harlem Capital Partners, it's harlemcapitalpartners.com. We're doing articles. We also have a diversity portal where it's basically, it's simple as a Google form. It takes about 90 seconds or so. And we're almost at 300 in less than a month who've signed up and put what money they're raising, where they're from, all these just tidbits. And we're going to start doing reports on that stuff. And what else? And we're always in Harlem. We're out of WeWork in Harlem. If you're ever up on 126 and 5th Avenue.
Beautiful space.
We have an Uptown Tech meetup. We just had Gerard Adams speak at it last time. Newark in the house.
Shout out to them.
Hopefully Ann Frazier will come through. We'll see if he can make it all the way up there. I know it's a trek.
It's not that far of a trek now, particularly for people who live in Brooklyn. Like I can get. But I can get to the city.
So Gerard took a little time getting up there. It was a tough one for him to get up there, but he made it, and it was a good showing. And I'm trying to think what else. We'll just be hosting a lot more events, so just check us out on harlemcapitalpartners.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Brandon.
Thank you.
That's a wrap.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you subscribe to us on iTunes so you can stay up to date on new episodes featuring more insiders. Have any questions? Leave us a comment on this episode at vccheatsheet.com. Or you can tweet us at TheCued, that's TheCueed. Until next time, be great, and it's a wrap.